Sir Alaric's gauntlet hung heavy in his small, damp chamber as torches flickered on slimy stone walls where rats scuttled. Each night he heard whispers. His lord demanded more from the peasants, yet Alaric, though sworn to protect, received no thanks, no warmth, merely a chain of duty that bit into his soul. When one freezing dawn he marched into battle, his lance shattered by a claymore wielded by peasants defending their own starving children, and his noble peers laughed at his broken emblem, Alaric felt a burning shame. He had trained since boyhood, bore weight of heavy armor, wounded in countless skirmishes for a lord who never saw the cost. Social injustice was his shackle. Revenge stalled in his breast, yet he dared not speak it until the day he discovered that the lord he served had hoarded grain to starve the peasants, enriching himself while Alaric bled. That truth kindled a fire he could not extinguish. Sir Alaric rose before dawn, leather straps biting his skin, iron armor cold and unforgiving. He had been a knight long enough to know that prestige meant little when you were valued only for war, not for truth. The feudal lord he served lorded over lands where peasants starved each harvest, where taxes took half their grain, though the lord's halls were full of wine and laughter. Alaric saw mothers with hollow eyes, children begging for bread, and knew this was not the honor he swore to defend. He carried the weight of thousands of unspoken grievances on his back, shield battered, heart heavier still. He had fought border raids, battled rival knights, learned swordsmanship, archery, courtly grace, but none of it prepared him for knowing that the world he protected thrived on injustice. In silence, Alaric planned, could he use his blade not against the enemy beyond the walls, but against the cruelty within? The thought both thrilled and terrified him. Alaric's days bled into one another in a blur of drilling, escorting tax carts, jousts, and bloodied skirmishes under banners that bore his lord's seal. But each victory tasted hollow, for it meant more glory for his lord. More suffering for the peasants whose fields he passed daily. He saw a child collapse beside a road where soldiers collecting taxes refused water because the coins paid to men in gold did not trickle down. Yet when Alaric spoke to his lord, the answer was cold. Duty demanded he obey, loyalty required silence. He felt betrayal deepest at the feast nights, when songs were sung of the Lord's generosity, while outside in mud huts bodies lay cold and empty. One cruel winter a plague struck. Alaric begged his lord to share stored grain, but instead the lord locked barns and let the poor freeze as he sold grain for high price elsewhere. Alaric's trust shattered. His rage coiled like a serpent ready to strike. Revenge became inevitable. He gathered whispers from peasants, saw the loyalty they still bore him despite everything, and realized power lay not only in his sword, but in people's trust. Then came the twist. The lord fell ill, pride and carelessness his downfall, and Alaric was summoned to take charge while the lord lay dying. With that moment, authority shifted. Alaric used his new position to open the grain stores, fed the starving, punished corrupt officials, and released peasants from unjust rents. But he also discovered that some knights, those he once regarded peers, were enemies masked behind feasts and oaths. Suspicion grew. In the shadows, he uncovered evidence that his own squire had colluded with the lord to betray him in that council meeting where his honor was questioned. The squire planted false documents undermining Alaric's loyalty. Betrayed again by blood-close servant, Alaric's heart thundered, but he acted swiftly, confronted the squire publicly, revealed the plot, and exiled him. The peasants watched, silent at first, then voices rose in praise. Yet Alaric felt grief for what trust was broken. In the end, Sir Alaric stood upon the threshold of the great hall, torchlight flickering on relieved faces of peasants, on kneeling nobles reluctant and humbled. He had seized power not by ambition but by justice served. The barns unlocked, the taxes lightened, the corrupt cast out. Yet power, he learned, bore its own poison. Every act of mercy weighed against the memory of betrayal. Every victory whispered a warning. Even the pure heart can harden in rule. The lord died, clutching regret no one heard. The squire's exile became tale whispered in dark corners. Alaric's name lived on among the oppressed, a symbol that even in the darkest feudal shadows, one man's will could tilt the scales. Still, Alaric returned each night to his chamber, the gauntlet now worn, his reflection haunted by the cost of change. but satisfied that injustice had trembled, and revenge had not destroyed him but forged him into something more than just a knight.